Alright, I am back with another Destiny 2 video. I'm a little late on this, but I was out of town, and everyone's kind of passed around this Grenader Jake video where he talks about like the truth about Destiny 2 and Bungie. A lot of people are reacting to it, and so being the trend follower that I am, I thought I would give it a watch and react to it myself. In the past, I've agreed with Jake on things, disagreed with Jake on things. We're kind of in different fields with him being in mainly PvP. But he made this video kind of off the cuff, and I don't know, he's getting a lot of crap for it, which I don't think is necessarily deserved, but, you know, going through it, I do disagree with a lot of what he says, even if I think he is making some cogent points in between. I just think there's a lot of stuff kind of omitted. And, you know, I just want to go through his major points and kind of give my own take on the truth about, you know, the current situation here. One of his main points at the beginning is that a big reason for pushback against the game right now is that the community is burned out, and that if the community took breaks from the game and came back a while later, that they would find that the game is still really great and it would engage them once again, and that is kind of a main issue of what's going on here and why community sentiment is so bad. I think that is part of why community sentiment is so bad. I do certainly think there is a level of burnout you can experience with Destiny. I've experienced that many times. And it is good to take breaks, play other games, especially, you know, in the wake of last year when there's just so many other games that were great and worth playing. And, you know, grinding Destiny every week without fail, just, it doesn't seem like that's a recipe for, you know, continuing to really love the game. And even Bungie's like, yeah, take breaks, like come back, whatever. However, I don't think this is kind of a universal truth here. You could leave the game and come back and be extremely disoriented because trying to catch up on like a current season, current expansion or whatever, depending on how much time you took off, you may be totally lost. You may not know where to start. You may not know what's going on. It's a difficult game to leave and come back to in many ways unless you're kind of keeping up with what's going on outside of the game. So I think there are a number of people where this may have the opposite effect, where they get out of Destiny for a while, they come back, and it's just they just don't really know what to do until they kind of bounce off it again. Additionally, I think there are many other reasons that people are tired of Destiny besides just burnout. I think there are clearly many issues that players may have with the game, be it, you know, the seasonal structure, a lack of focus on PvP until very recently. Gambit mains may be upset that nothing is happening with that mode. Obviously, Lightfall was very bad, and people weren't burned out on that. It was just bad, and they wanted to leave. So it's a little bit of a blanket statement, I think, in terms of like what ails the game and why the community is upset. I don't know if he meant it like totally as a blanket statement, but I do think that's how it comes off, and that's what a lot of people are taking away from it. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I do think there are a wide range of reasons people leave and what happens when people come back that are not just everyone's burned out. Like, that's the main issue here. Jake also says like the best days of Destiny are behind us and that we all have to kind of come to terms with that. This is probably true. I think there's, you know, maybe some over nostalgia about Destiny 1 and the early days of Destiny 2 when pound for pound the game has improved in many ways since then. It has gotten way more content than it used to, and I think some of those are missing the community vibes and the game vibes, not necessarily like this content is actively worse outside of like very specific instances like Lightfall, for instance. Even that, like, as bad as Lightfall was, like the structure of the missions was pretty good. You know, this introduction of Strand was really good. That was so creative. It's just like the Lightfall story was extremely bad. That was like the main thing. So it's probably true that we are not really going to get a new peak in Destiny 2. I know Bungie wants the final shape to be like the best thing they've ever done ever. I would love for that to be true. It's just a little hard for me to believe that's going to be true, even based on what we already know about the final shape. No new enemy race, no fully new subclasses, a fight against the Witness, who I do not think is a compelling villain. I'm just a little concerned that like the setup is not really there for that. As for the future, we'll talk about that in a second, but sure, I believe that a Destiny 3 or whatever at some point could spark a resurgence and be, you know, the fresh start people need and the, you know, a new peak for the game or whatever, but that's so far away. Even if we do ever get there, that's a little bit of a different conversation. He says that Final Shape won't motivate people to get really back into Destiny, and that most people are not going to play the upcoming episodes. This is a concern that I share pretty strongly. I think a lot of people view the Final Shape as a hard ending for the game, which Bungie has pretty much set it up as. They have said that, yes, we are going to make content going forward, and they have presented us the episodes, but I also believe that there is going to be a significant drop-off of people, and I do not know how many people are going to play the episodes. Some people will, certainly, but I don't think everyone's complaining about the seasonal model. I don't know if this is going to be enough of a shakeup to the seasonal model to have 3 episodes instead of 4 seasons and like have them broken up a little differently. I don't know if that's really going to satisfy people, especially if we're just sort of heading into these nebulous stories that don't connect to each other. Like, here's a Scorn season, here's a Hive season, whatever. Maybe those will turn out really well, but even, like, I feel like even if they are good, that the Final Shape is serving as a hard endpoint. So I think we're going to see further drop-offs when episodes start. However, he goes into this idea that the Final Shape is going to be the last major DLC expansion for Destiny 2. I don't believe this. I've never believed this. I don't think this is happening. Bungie will continue to make big expansions for Destiny 2. I don't have any inside info on that necessarily. I just, logically, I don't think they can stop making those because, they need this ability to sell these, $100 get everything for the next year things, and just selling $15 episodes indefinitely is not really going to do that, especially if you can pick and choose what episodes you want to buy since they're just connected, blah, blah, blah. Like, that is the main source of revenue for Destiny, is selling these big expansions for $40 or $50 by themselves, whatever they are independently, or $100 for the entire year. They can't stop doing that. I think the reason that everyone's saying this is, oh, well, they haven't talked about future expansions, like blah, blah, blah. The clear reason for that is that they're just trying to make people pre-order the Final Shape. They don't want to talk about any other expansions or any new chapter for Destiny, the beginning of a new arc or whatever, until the Final Shape is over. Because there is so much riding on the Final Shape, because if the Final Shape is a giant disaster and doesn't sell nearly as well as they need it to, is not received well, that jeopardizes everything. Jeopardizes Destiny, jeopardizes the whole company. So they need to I think they are, work-wise, pouring everything they can into the Final Shape, but they really need that to perform well for them. And if it doesn't, GG. So that is why they're not talking about it. It's not because they're not going to make future stuff. It's just, this is not the time to lay out, like, oh, here's the next 3 expansions, like, but by the way, buy the Final Shape. I can see, the potential benefit there, where at least it looks like you're committing to Destiny for the long haul, but I also think the future plans do depend on how Final Shape does. I think they need to get off this 1.5-year cadence, if possible, because Sony's talking about budgets and timelines, and they have delayed their last 3 major expansions, all of them. They've delayed all of them, and this yearly expansion idea is now, an every 18-month expansion idea, and that is probably not good enough. But I do think they're making more expansions. I don't think Jake is right about that, although he's not the only person I've heard talk about this. So his entire kind of what Bungie is doing wrong section is centered on cheaters, which it's a little bit like Elon Musk complaining about bots on Twitter. Like, it's something that affected him so directly that it's a little hard to see other perspectives. I do think that Jake does say, like, I'm a big PvP streamer. People snipe me. Like, I run into this a lot more than other people. So, like, he acknowledges these bias in that direction. But, like, it's the Elon bot thing. It's like there were bazillions of bots under his comments when that wasn't really the case for most people. It is now, but at the time, that wasn't really true at the time. And as someone, I may not play a ton of PvP, but, like, I can only remember a scarce handful of times ever where I've seen a cheater in, like, years and years of playing this game. And, like, well, I'm not a PvP main. Certainly, I have played hundreds of hours of PvP still. And I do think this is obviously something that is overrepresented in trials, in competitive, stuff like that. And the player base for that is relatively small. So I get why Jake thinks this is worth devoting an entire section to. It gets a little armchairy where he's like, why don't they just hire, like, one person to manually look at everyone's KD ratio? He even says, he'll pay for that person. He'll employ someone at Bungie to do this job and manually check out, these 50 KDA people with 100% cloud strike accuracy, which I think he's getting. It's funny, but I think it's a little more complicated than that. I don't know if Bungie has the resources to just manually go through everyone with a suspicious KDA, and even if they do, you pop one mole, another one pops up next to them. I don't think it's that easy. Nor do I think it's remotely close to the most pressing problem with the game. Every multiplayer game has cheaters to some extent. Like, this is not a thing unique to Destiny. I don't think the cheating problem in Destiny is significantly higher than like Call of Duty, Warzone, or a bunch of other games. Like, this is always just a problem in multiplayer games. Like, there's freaking Pal World cheaters that they're trying to ban out of Pal World now. Like, any game people are going to cheat in, and it is annoying. It is fully annoying when you run into it, especially in something like Trials where you need a flawless passage and like one round of cheaters can ruin your whole thing. That is the difference in that, the way something like Trials is set up or competitive is set up, that's like a problem there. But I would say like 99% of the player base is not running into this. And, how many problems do I need to list with Destiny that are probably more pressing than that? I've already talked about some of them, but like those are the things that I think affect the game more than anything else. Onboarding of new players, I think, is one of the worst things the game does. Content bolting was obviously one of the worst decisions they've ever made for whatever technical reasons they needed to make it. A lack of support for PvP. They are trying now, but for years and years they let it languish outside of cheaters. There's a lot more to do there. I still like Gambit. It has been totally abandoned. I think they have poured way too many resources into just the PvE side of things, and a lot of times that got a little too repetitive. Lightfall suffered from story quality control. Like, there's many, many, many things that are wrong with the game that everyone sort of has their own issues. And like, I get that this is Jake's specific issue and I get why it is, but like, viewed from the outside, like the truth about Destiny 2 and Bungie is that like cheaters are the biggest problem with the game, and the reason community sentiment is so bad because of cheaters is burnout. I just think it's a lot more complex than that. And I understand why he's coming from the perspective that he is, but I think there's a much sort of larger picture of many, many reasons the community is burned out, many, many reasons that Bungie is not doing this or that properly. Though I do agree with a lot of what he's saying. You do need to take breaks. Like, I think that is important. And I do think maybe, Destiny 2 is probably past its peak at this point. For me personally, I thought Witch Queen was the peak. I know a lot of people say Forsaken, but I think Witch Queen was probably the best part or the best era of Destiny 2 personally. And I am genuinely worried about what happens after the final shape, because I can see a huge player drop off. I can see a lot less people playing the episodes. That said, I do think they're making new expansions. Okay, so that's my take on this. Again, no offense to Jake. I think he's getting way too much shit for this. I'm not trying to pile on him. I think it's such a popular video that I think it's worth kind of giving my own take on it instead of reading a 7,000 word PvP twab that I don't understand. Okay, so yep, back to managing my Suicide Squad clan. Nope, just kidding. The game's so broken I can't even play it. So I will see what else I can work on here. Gonna go see Madame Web today, so that's gonna be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. So taking breaks from Destiny, see you Madame Web. Good use of time. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.